Well, this is JC one more time with chapter 19 of my book that I entitle Todd. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying writing it. So, without further ado, um, here's chapter 19 of Todd. It's still early, said Les. How about lunch? Sounds good, replied Todd. Where do you want to go? There's another town just north and east of here. We could go there and check it out and then go on up to 40 and then around on 385 and back to Belton. Sounds like a pretty good loop, and we got plenty of time yet today, said Les. Do you know of a cafe going that way? Nope, said Todd. How about we just go back to the truck stop and have lunch, said Les. It's on the way. I'd kind of like to see the waitress again. She seemed real nice. Yeah, maybe your husband's there now, Todd said. Les was wondering what Todd had meant about having an idea about things. He had mentioned it twice, but he never expounded on it in any way. Todd said, do you know what a franchise is? Les thought for a second and then said, yeah, sort of. It's where someone else takes over a business, but you still own it. Kind of like farmers sharecropping their produce. Sharecropping, said Todd. Yeah, said Les. I own 100 acres of cotton, for instance, and it's ready to be picked, but I don't want to use my time to do it. So I negotiate with some family. Sometimes it's a husband and wife and a kid or two to take over the cotton and pick it. They move into a house maybe owned by the landowner, and they live there and pick the cotton every day until it's all picked. Then they sell it to a cotton gin, and they pay the landowner a percentage of whatever the net profit is. Yeah, it's something like that. I'm wondering if that might be a way to go with the corporation. Maybe people like Junior, underfunded, would be better off financially than if they were just the sole owners like he is now. They reached the truck stop and Les pulled into the same parking slot she had before. Looks like they saved this parking place for us, she chuckled. Todd agreed. They went into the cafe and saw the same booth empty, and they sat there. The cafe was very busy now with many truckers here for lunch. Sometimes when he can, a trucker will find a special cafe, one that feeds well or has exceptional help, exceptional service, and he'll schedule his runs to be there for meals as often as possible. Well, hello there, a shrill voice called out. You're back? They looked up and saw the same waitress who served them breakfast. They looked at her and smiled. Todd asked, is your husband here? Yes, he is, she said. Wait. She left and went to the back of the seating section. A man was sitting alone at a table. She said something to him, and he got up and followed her to their table. This is my husband, Chucky, she said. Chucky, these are the people I told you about. They might move here. The man reached out to shake hands with Todd first. Nice to meet you, he said, and it's Chuck Bartlett. I'm just Chucky to Dana. It's nice to meet you, Chucky, said Todd with a big grin. Oops, Chuck. This is Leslie, my future. Chuck took Les' hand and shook it gingerly, afraid he might squeeze it too hard. He said, she said, Todd calls me sweetie, but you can call me Les, she said with a grin. She whispered to Todd, your future? Golly, that's sounding good. Todd liked this man already, and the lady, Dana, too, and he could tell Les liked him, too. Chuck grinned at Todd. Your future, eh? Not married yet? Not yet, replied Todd, but we're working on it. You're moving here? Asked Chuck. No. We're here looking over some businesses, the hardware business, said Todd. Chuck looked at Dana. She shrugged a little shrug, but didn't say anything. We were at the hardware store in town, said Todd. Oh, you met Junior? Asked Chuck. He's a great guy. We babysit for him sometimes. Dana added, not so much anymore. His girl's pretty big now. She goes to the store with him a lot. She's a sweetheart, added Les with a smile. Anyone hungry? Asked Todd. Oh, yeah, said Dana. And what would you like? Meatloaf is on the lunch special. Les looked at Todd, then said, yeah, a special for both of us. And 2 coffees. Or make it 4 coffees? Just 3, said Dana. I got to go to work before the boss notices I stopped temporarily. With that, Dana went to the counter and turned the orders in. Todd didn't watch her walk away this time, but Chuck did. In a while, they finished their lunches and said their goodbyes and left the truck stop. While they were eating, Les and Dana had agreed to chat back and forth on Facebook. Maybe later they would visit each other. The men listened and agreed. They started back south toward Belton for a few miles, then turned east for 16 miles to the next small town of Mercer. It was about 26,000 population, a bit bigger than Dexter. There were two hardware stores in Mercer, one small store right on the main street, and a bigger one at the north end of town, a shopping mall. They stopped at the small store first. There was a parking space in front of the store, and Les pulled right into it. They went inside and looked around the store for a moment. Then an older man approached them and asked if he could help them. Todd introduced himself and Leslie. He said, "I'm Todd Daniels, and this is Leslie Foley." The old man said, "You're Bobby's boy?" "Sorry to hear about Bobby. I still owe him some money." "Not much, a couple of $100. Todd asked, "How's business lately?" He said, "You want to get paid what I owed Bobby?" said the old man. "No, I just wondered how business is. That debt was between you and Dad. It's got nothing to do with me." "Well, it ain't too swift lately. That's why I owe Bobby money. A new big store went in out north at the mall, and I lost a lot of business. I don't know much about advertising, so I called Bobby and asked his advice. He just drove on over and he told me a few things about how to advertise and the like. He gave me $300 and told me to go to the local radio station, and he wrote down what they should say. I was just going to do that maybe today or tomorrow. I heard about Bobby dying, so I thought it best to wait a while in case someone wanted the money back. I mean, not everybody's like Bobby was." Todd was amazed. Has his dad loaned money or in some other way helped everybody around here who owns a hardware store? Maybe not just hardware. Larry back in Dexter didn't have a hardware store, and he mentioned Bobby too as helping him. "Is this your wife?" asked the old man. "Oh, I'm Jim Carlton, by the way. Better introduce myself so you know who you're talking to." Leslie smiled at this crusty old man and said, "I ain't his wife yet, but I'm working on it." "But you're working on it," Jim Carlton said in unison with Les. "I knowed what you was going to say," he said with a chuckle, and Les and Todd laughed too. "Mr. Carlton, I have some ideas about the hardware business, mostly the smaller ones around this part of the country that I wonder if you might like to hear." "Well, what you see here is all there is. Folks at the mall asked me if I had ever thought about selling out and retiring. I hadn't then, but I don't know. That might be the way to go after all." "Mr. Carlton, would you mind if I looked at your books?" said Todd. The old man looked at him without speaking for a few seconds. Then he said, "If you was anyone besides Bobby's boy, I'd tell you to take a hike. But come on with me." He looked at Les. "Can you watch the store for a while so as I can get the books? It'll just be a minute." "Sure," said Les. "Go ahead." The old man said, "You need to call me by my first name, Jim. By my first name, Jim, if we're going to be business partners." "Oh, yeah," said Todd with a smile. "You don't miss much, do you, Jim?" "Not much," Jim said. "There ain't that much time left to miss anything." Now, this is the end of chapter 19, my book that I entitled Todd. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. And this is JC saying I'll see you down the road if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.